You're good.
All right, so this is the Willamette Week endorsement interview for District 19 for the GOP race. So we have Wendy O'Reilly on Zoom and Ben Edel here in person. So just some basic ground rules. Make sure your phones are silenced. This isn't a debate, and so we can't guarantee equal time for candidates, although we'll try to be as equal as we can with that. And if your answers are a bit long-winded, we might cut you off, but there's only 2 people, so I don't think it's going to be a huge problem with that. So to start, it'd be great if both of you could give just a really brief overview of who you are and why you're running for this position. So I guess, Ben, we'll start with you in person, and then we'll come to Wendy after that.
Yeah, so you said who I am and
who you are and why you're running.
And why I'm running.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Ben Edel. I am a father, a husband. I was a small business owner in Portland. We had 3 cafes and a coffee roastery in the city of Portland that ultimately was crushed by government regulations, and we had to fold up in late 2020, November 2020.
All 3 of them?
4, yeah. We had 3 cafes and a coffee roastery, two different businesses or 2 different entities that operated each.
Okay.
At one point we had upwards of 20 employees. And we were thriving, and we got destroyed by the COVID regulations and this cancel culture, or what I like to say is a threat on our freedom of speech, and lawlessness. That was a huge part. I mean, one of our cafes was across the street from the police station on MLK between Killingsworth and Alberta. It was a bad location. Our other one was downtown, bad location. It was great locations until it wasn't. And so in January, I started Free Oregon, which is now the largest and most effective civil rights public benefit company in the state. We have upwards of 12 to 16 different lawsuits in federal and state court against the state of Oregon, against Oregon Health Authority, against sort of these overreaching government entities. And we're trying to keep them held accountable. And then I decided that Rob Wagner, who is the incumbent in District 19, was unopposed, and I think he needs to go. I don't think he deserves that seat.
Mm-hmm. Just really quick, do you think Free Oregon's the largest and most effective civil rights group?
Well, I would say that it's the largest due to just sheer numbers in terms of our members, and I think that
How many members?
Oh, we've got about 5,000 plus bona fide activist members, and we have we've raised a healthy amount of money through that, and we've filed probably the most lawsuits, at least from a conservative standpoint, I guess, to use the word. Unfortunately, we're nonpartisan.
Yeah.
But we're fighting back against government overreach.
Okay, gotcha.
And defending individual liberties.
Okay. I saw that you also formed Citizens for Truth as a business. Is that related to Free Oregon, or is that different?
Yeah, it's just a C3. Free Oregon's a C4, so Citizens for Truth is our C3. So we use that. We really haven't. There's really not a lot of activity at this point through the C3, just because we're just not there yet. But it is established.
Okay, great. And Wendy, same to you. Who you are and why you're running.
So I'm kind of on the same page as Ben. Wagner's gotta go. I've done a lot of research on the items that he has passed, and he seems to be more on the woke agenda than actually the Oregonian agenda. I have 4 main pillars that I absolutely feel very strongly about. During the COVID, the medical privacy that was invaded on people has just gone over the top. It's not a pro or against mandate or pro mask against mask. It's none of that. It's just the simple fact that a person's medical issues should be private. That's the whole point. Our children at 14 years old, the parents can't even call the doctor's offices, but you can go to a hockey game and they can ask for your medical status. It's not right. People's medical status should be completely private, regardless of what it's for, what it's about, or what's going on in the U.S. I work in downtown Portland, so I see the crime and the homelessness every day, and it's coming further down the freeway actually starting to leave Portland. I've driven through Salem multiple times, and these issues have got to get addressed. We need tougher on crime action, and that doesn't seem to be happening. Taxes are another one. Oregon is the only state in the top 5 categories for taxes. And I know a lot of people, they can't even afford their property taxes. They're getting ready to sell their houses. They've left the state because it's too expensive to live here. Oregon averages about 52% of your income going out in taxes if you add all the hidden taxes that are in things, such as the gas, the food, the electricities. Just being working downtown Portland, you have an extra tax, and these got to get reduced. Otherwise, Oregonians are going to keep fleeing to lower income, lower tax states. Last but not least, the one I'm most passionate about is our education system. I have been with the Tualatin Moms. We have been fighting the school district since all of this started. Our kids just got out of masks like 3 months ago, 4 months ago. It's been heck here. We still don't have our graduations, proms, all of that going on. Kate Brown reduced the credits needed to graduate. Granted, Oregon is 24, just like the rest of the states that have the higher credit requirements. But half of the credits that our children need to graduate are electives. This does not prepare them for the workforce. This does not prepare them for college. And those that don't want to go to college, a lot of the options that we had when I was a kid, that children could go to, like welding and mechanics and those hands-on jobs, they've all been taken out of the schools. So not all kids want to go to college, but there needs to be opportunities for them if they want to go into a trade versus go to college or straight into the workforce. But we can't have our kids leaving school at the end of their junior year because their credits are done. There needs to be incentive to keep that education system going and to prep them for where they want to go next. Education is huge on my list, and sex education going down to kindergarten is unacceptable, and that needs to be stopped.
When do you think it should start?
I honestly had a problem with what my son saw in 5th grade. It went too far. So that's kind of been the standard going on. But kids from kindergarten to 4th grade especially, they're innocent. They need time to build relationships and friends and find out who they are. They don't need sex education. In the world, the average age for sex for the first time is dropping to under 10 years old. You can't stop it if you don't stop teaching little people these things that they should not even be aware of. So that is definitely one of the things I want to work on getting fixed.
I've never heard of kindergartners actually learning sex. Is it your school district learning, like, in kindergarten actual, like, what sex is?
No,
or is it what it is in districts I've experienced where it's like, you know, learning, like, you know, kind of about the body, or like how to handle relationships with other students?
The Kaiser Salem School District all got notices in February regarding teaching more about the private parts and such, all the way down to kindergarten. I am unaware as to when it exactly starts, but their address is to go over, you know, girl, boy, sexual orientation, all of that stuff, all the way down to kindergarten. And when one school district starts something, you know that the rest are going to jump on the bandwagon.
This is in a similar vein. Both of you mentioned medical freedom in the voters pamphlet, so I'm wondering if you could, I'll start with you, Ben, if you could explain what does that term actually mean to you, and how would you, incorporate that if you were elected to this position?
Look, medical freedom is about individual liberty. It goes back to that. I'm a Republican. I'm not a social conservative. I'm more of a social liberal compared to my opponent here. But I'll tell you right now, when the government gets involved in what happened in 2020, when there was an emergency use authorization for a relatively, comparatively speaking, I mean, it takes 6-7 years just to slightly modify something that's already been FDA approved. Okay, so we're talking about a new drug, a new medical procedure that hasn't been deployed at this magnitude on humans, and we're essentially in the state of Oregon forcing people to get it if they want to have their jobs, or if they want to have, and now.
Are you talking about the vaccine?
I'm talking about the vaccine. And now today we see that the vaccine really doesn't necessarily work to slow the spread of COVID. And that's what happens when the government gets involved. People are injured, and obviously, granted, we know that not a huge number of people are injured, at least at this point. But there is facts and data backing up the fact that people are having delayed physical responses and delayed long-term injuries from this vaccine experiment that has been done on us. We are fighting at Free Oregon against this mandate from last October, right? And the state's argument has been all along that it's not a mandate, because if it's deemed by the courts to be a mandate by the state of Oregon, we will win that case. And according to the EUA, you cannot mandate an experimental emergency authorized drug. So when the government gets so big in our lives and starts to force us to put in, things in our bodies that we don't want to put in our bodies, or we're not sure should go in our bodies, that needs to be a choice. This is not, individuals have rights to decide what goes in their bodies. Now, on the other hand, on the flip side, I understand having vaccine mandates, which we've had for many decades, obviously, to be in place to help our general public health. I mean, that's sensible, right? But at the same time, in the past, up until 2020, 2021, what we've had is we've had religious exemptions or medical exemptions that were widely accepted. But now, since this has been so politicized, we've ended up having a great many of religious and medical exemptions denied. In fact, one of our plaintiffs at Free Oregon is a 22-year-old girl who is a marathon runner. And because she has a family history of vaccine injury, her doctor, her personal medical doctor, who'd been her doctor for over a decade, said, I'm going to give you a medical exemption. But her employer denied it. And she got the poke. And what happened was she got injured by the vaccine. And to this day, she walks in a walker. And that to me is immoral and wrong. And we have to really come to grip with the balance between public safety and what's good for all of us, and individual liberty, which is what's good for the individual.
So
I think
in
it's
a
very important.
legislative sense, what does that mean? Would you introduce a bill pertaining to this?
Well, yeah, the vaccine mandate, we're challenging it in court, and I think we're going to win. And so
But what would you do in the that's court. So like in the legislature, what would you do?
In the legislature, what I would do is I would go into the state capitol, and I would just lead. I would lead by making sure that we're reversing bills and laws that and emergency orders that were ordered, executive orders that were ordered, that we can reverse those things so that we can restore our constitutional law, restore the government back into its constitutional constraints. And the government in Oregon has gone way beyond its constitutional constraints, and almost in every single subject around the state, whether it be in Portland, whether it be about public safety, whether it be about medical, whether it be about the operations of our hospitals or our schools, the government's overreached. And right now we are looking at a humanitarian crisis in the state of Oregon, and it's terribly concerning to me.
I'm sorry, the humanitarian crisis from government overreach is what?
I just said that from if you look at almost every single categorical major issue that we have in the state of Oregon, the government in Oregon has created a humanitarian crisis.
What is the humanitarian crisis?
Well, homelessness.
So, and how is that created by government overreach?
It's created by government overreach because the city of Portland, for example, here's just an example. The city of Portland has had a homeless emergency order in place for years. I think 6 years, something like that. And during that period of time, homelessness in the city, in the metro area has gone out of control. It's not gotten better, it's gotten worse. And what's happening right now, especially with 110, I think 110 should be repealed. And 110, obviously, you remember, is the bill that essentially decriminalized hard drugs.
Yeah, the ballot measure.
Yeah, and what we have right now is we have a situation, and by the way, that 110 was funded and paid for by out-of-state entities, okay, to do social experiments on Oregonians. And what that's done is it's brought a lot of homeless people from out-of-state in, which is hurting the Oregonians that are already here. But what's most tragic to me is the fact that people are
But
dying.
110
I'm not done, please excuse me.
110 isn't a government overreach. In fact, it's libertarian.
The government overreach I already explained to you was the emergency powers that the city of Portland has maintained, which has created a crisis in our city and in our metro area. Their emergency powers have allowed the politicians in the city of Portland to try all these different things that have resulted only in an increase in homelessness and drug addiction and overdose deaths and crime. And that's something you cannot deny. And so I think it's really, really important to look at the correlation between emergency power, government overreach, which is defined by emergency power, and the results.
Let's just take my understanding of the homeless emergency order is it actually wipes away some of the big government regulations, particularly on placing homeless camps. So I just don't see the argument. I'm on that.
That's hilarious. You're funny.
No, I'm like, you have to make the argument.
So you're telling me with my eyes, I can't see since 7 years ago when the first emergency orders occurred, how bad homelessness has gotten to this point. You're telling me it's getting better?
What is the government overreach? I'm asking.
The emergency power, the emergency authorization is
But
government
what in
overreach.
it? What
And in that government overreach, let me tell you some more about government overreach in the city of Portland. When you make a law, which the city of Portland did, that removed Title 33 in the building codes, you're now allowing homeless people to set up infrastructures on public lands that taxpayers are paying for, not the homeless. Homeless don't pay for taxes. And they get to have structures now that are dangerous, that catch fire, that affect the property owners that they live nearby. When you create laws like the city of Portland did that says you cannot camp within 10 feet of a doorway, you are essentially saying you can camp 10 feet from a doorway, right? So that's just philosophy and logic. And so when you create these laws under emergency order, which they have, you create the system where it's okay for people to camp 10 feet from property owners in doorways, and that's an infringement on property rights.
Okay,
and if
so
you
you're
can't
saying
see
that
then I don't know what you're looking at.
So you're saying an example of government overreach is that the city of Portland passed a law that banned camping 10 feet from doorways, but not further, and therefore homeless camps set up 10 feet.
The city of Portland, through a plethora of policies and actions, using their emergency orders on homelessness, have enabled the homeless people to live more free and to be more prevalent in our area. And as a result of that, let me explain something to you. As a result, this is the humanitarian crisis. These homeless camps, I know because I have a direct experience. My son's mom and my son, they live in North Portland next to one of the largest homeless camps in the city. It's caught fire multiple times. People break into her house. One of the neighbors was arrested because he got in a fist fight altercation with one of the homeless people in his property. This happens all across the city of Portland, and it's as a direct result of the enablement of drug addicts and people with mental illness to live wherever they want to. It's an infringement on property rights, and it's a humanitarian crisis for those who are dying with needles in their arms every single day in this city, and it breaks my heart. And I can go into Salem right now and I can start fixing it.
Okay, so you drew, one thing I wanted to ask was you drew a distinction from your opponent, and we are here to draw distinctions between the two of you. So you said you're more, I forget how you said it, but socially liberal.
Correct.
How do you think you're different?
Look, I'm born and raised in the city of Portland. I went to Benson High School. I graduated from Grant. I've never lived more than 33 blocks from the river. As a kid, I lived in the King District in the 90s. And so I have a relationship with the black community. I have a relationship with the city of Portland. Portland used to be the freest city in the nation. And I love this city. I love this town. And I love our state. And I'll tell you right now, what I've seen happen in the last few years has broken my heart. I am not I'm a Republican, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of social conservatives in Salem. There's a lot of social conservatives that are running for office right now, but they're not Republicans. As a Republican, I believe in individual liberties. I believe we need to protect those individual liberties. I believe in democratic process. And our ultimate opponent, Rob Wagner, has voted, like in 1521, SB 1521, he voted to remove the power of school boards to fire a superintendent. So now the Oregon Department of Education, a state agency, gets to decide who stays and who goes, not the people that are elected by the constituents in the districts. And that's anti-democratic, and I'm against that. You know, Rob Wagner has voted for...
But draw a distinction between your primary opponent, if you would, because we're here to make a decision about endorsement.
Well, one of the distinctions is that I'm going to be able to go in there because of what I've been able to demonstrate in the last year, since January 2021. I can go in and I can push conservative, social conservatives that call themselves Republicans, and I can push Democrats as well. And I don't have to push Democrats. Democrats are flocking to Free Oregon. A quarter of our members are registered Democrats. They're fed up too, and rightly so, because they have hearts and they see the humanitarian crisis that the state of Oregon has created with Wagner's help. I'm not terribly interested in divisive issues like transgender, sex education. I'm interested in restoring our graduation standards for all kids. And here's an example, and I'll tell you, it doesn't matter what color you are.
Isn't that big government though, graduation standards?
How is that big government? That's little government. If the government stopped doing anything, if the Oregon Department of Education did one thing and one thing only, I hope it would be setting standards. But they do everything but set standards. So that's big government to me. What is the Department of Education doing if they're not going to implore standards for our kids to graduate? I mean, isn't that not insane to you?
So you don't care about...
Let's set political party aside. Like, is that not insane to you?
So you don't care. So in the distinction you were making is you're not like alarmed as your opponent is by like...
I'm alarmed with the fact that...
No. Like, let me just understand.
Sure.
Just try and understand the difference so that we can accurately portray your position.
Thank you.
It's like you're on transgender issues, like the alarm bells that have been set off, like you're not worried about that. That would not be a priority issue for you. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that. Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm not bothered or upset. I don't believe that being transgender is wrong. I think that's okay. I think being gay is okay. I think gay marriage is okay. I would fight for gay marriage just like I would fight for the right to keep the government from putting a jab in your body. I find those things to be civil rights issues that must be protected in their individual rights.
Does abortion fall under that for you too?
In many ways it does. But in some ways it doesn't, but in many ways it does. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that we have some huge issues, but I want to protect on the transgender issues that's happening in our school systems. I want to protect our girls from danger. And Title IX, which I'm sure you're aware of, was passed in '72, and Title IX protects women in educational systems. And some of the things that Wendy was just talking about, which is fantastic, what's going on in Salem-Keizer, that's coming from the Oregon Department of Education. Instead of having standards, they're making it so that biological boys can compete in women's sports, and that's immoral.
Okay. So maybe there's not so much of a distinction there.
Oh, is that what you come up with?
To be I want to give your opponent a chance.
Please do.
Yeah. So Wendy, thank you. Your opponent, has talked a lot about, the LGBTQ issues, and you seem to be saying that there's a distinction. I'm not really sure. I just want to give you a chance to respond to that. If you see, distinction between the two of your campaigns in terms of your beliefs on sex education or transgender issues.
So first of all, not sure how he came up with I'm a liberal. That is absolutely not true.
I didn't say she was a liberal.
He was saying he was
conservative.
He was saying that he was more socially liberal. He did not call you a liberal.
Okay, because I'm
sorry.
No. I'm actually very conservative.
Is there
My medical privacy issue does not relate to just the transgender issue. It's maintaining the security and confidentiality of our personal, private medical records. It goes beyond the issues that are going into school. For example, what really started to bug me with the COVID is I am a 2-time cancer survivor. And when you're going through that, your mental capacity is all over the place. You're in fear, you are thinking the worst, you're prepping for everything. And so when I was going through these turmoils, my husband couldn't get the phone calls from the doctors. I actually had to get on the phone and take those phone calls. That's the kind of stuff I want to address. That needs to be more regulated in the fact that our spouses shouldn't have to get special permission all the time. My child is 16 years old, and 2 years ago, because he turned 14, I can't talk to the doctors about anything that he's done. He's even shown me emails where they've sent him telling him, oh, I'm so sorry, your mom wants to be involved in your stuff, but we won't let her. This is wrong. These are our children. But through COVID, looking back on all of these things, through COVID, you could go to any kind of a social event and they could ask you about your medical privacy. And I'm with Ben, it's your body, it's your choice. I don't care if you're transgender, I don't care if you're gay, I don't care if you're straight. Those are your choices for your body with your Lord, if that's involved or not. What I'm concerned about is the medical privacy and some of the choices that are being taken away from our parents. For example, if this thing in Kaiser Salem does continue and it does spread out to more school districts, the teachers are supposed to be in academia. They are not supposed to be involved in parents' conversations that they should be having. Parents should be having those conversations, and when their children are ready, which they know. So it's more to basically revamp how the system is and who can talk to who and when, and keep our children safe at, oh my gosh, I'm super sorry. Keep our children safe at a more personal level. I do agree with Ben. I am against anybody using any bathroom they want. But again, that goes to the fact that you have little people who have innocence, and they need time to build their character, to build their life choices, to see how they fit in the system, in the world, in society. And they just don't need this on their plate. They just don't. But the medical privacy I'm talking about is a revamping of who can talk to who and when and where. Absolutely, schools should not be involved in the medical choices of our children. That's going to be my start.
Yeah, I just want to, well, do you have I'm not sure. Well, I mean, we are running short on time. But I want to ask I don't know if it's too inflammatory, but I want to ask all right. Well, I mean, just on the topic of medical freedom, and I touched on this with you a few minutes ago, and you said, Wendy, if it's your body, it's your choice. I'm just curious, does that same logic apply to women's reproductive health? Do you think the government should have a role in, should be able to have a say in who can have an abortion and when? I'll start with you, Wendy, this time.
That is a very touchy subject, but I can't go on medical privacy and then say, but that don't count. Like, your body is your body, and we have to respect that. I mean, honestly, if I, God forbid, had been raped or, molested by a grandparent or whatever those kind of things are, I wouldn't want to carry that pregnancy. That would be a turmoil beyond the event itself. But those are my choices. If somebody else thought otherwise, that's their choice. Medical privacy is medical privacy. It shouldn't matter if it's about a shot, if it's about an abortion, if it's about your cancer records. It is private. That is the whole point of coming to America, is so that we can live here and make the choices that we want to make for ourselves. I mean, we're not stupid. People aren't going to put themselves in harm's way just because. I mean, we do have the vaccines that have been around for ages. Everybody takes those. I have a godson who can't take them because he's allergic to gelatin, which is in those. But again, that's his parents' medical choice to not push that button and try to make it go further. And that's where we need to get back to in Oregon. If we want to go our body, our choice, it has to be on everything. It can't be on this piece or that piece or this piece. It has to be all or nothing. We need to protect ourselves.
Yeah, and Ben, same to you. What should the government be able to restrict or regulate abortions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in line with Wendy on this one as well. I'm a man, all right? I'm a biological male. I am in no danger of ever getting pregnant. I do have children, and by any means necessary, I would protect those pregnancies. I believe in their right to live. I do believe in my body, my choice, but at some point there's two bodies going on there. And so, as you said, it's a very difficult issue, okay? Here's where I stand on it. I stand on the fact that I'm not God, right? And I'll never make that decision. And so I believe that a woman in that situation needs to make that decision and live with it and learn from it and grow from it, or not, or whatever happens. It needs to be her choice to a degree. Now, if you ask people, even people that are super pro-choice, if you say, well, when are you not pro-choice anymore? You know, second trimester, third, 2 years old. You know, at what point in time, everybody's going to have common ground on this issue at some point. You know, we're going to have common ground on, like, yeah, that's a little late.
So do you have a time limit in your mind for when there should be a cutoff?
I think that here's my belief. I believe that if someone is going to terminate a pregnancy, they should do it ASAP, as soon as possible. If they're going to make that decision for whatever reason that they have. I think certain reasons are more bona fide than others. Some people are just afraid, but they just don't know that they can. My wife is someone who had a child very young, and she's very, very successful, and she's very amazing, and her son is very amazing. Things can happen that you think are going to be the end of the world, but they're not. They make your world better. But again, I'm not God, and I'm not going to make that choice for someone else. I'm not going to use government to make that choice. I do think, though, that there needs to be protections in place for an innocent unborn child that potentially could have a great life as well. So it's a very challenging subject, but I'm not in a position where I would think that tackling the abortion issue in the state of Oregon right now is going to be front and center. The most important issues we have right now are for the people that are here now suffering, and there is a lot of suffering going on in the state of Oregon. It is front and center
because our neighboring state just passed one of the most restrictive abortion bans in the country, Idaho.
So what?
It's relevant because there's people who will be coming from Idaho to get abortions in Oregon. So if you're a senator in Oregon, this issue is actually incredibly relevant.
Okay, then they can come to Oregon and get an abortion if that's what. You can also come to Oregon and die now, right? If you're old and you don't want to, or if you're suffering from something, you come to Oregon and commit suicide too. So Oregon has some real interesting issues happening. If Idaho decides to ban abortions, that's not something that I'm going to do. I'm not going to go to Salem and start thinking the first thing I'm going to do is ban abortions. No, the first thing I'm going to do is try to get our gas taxes under control, try to get our schools actually performing. Look, we have our governor is ranked 50 in the nation. She's hated. She's the most hated governor in the country. She's terrible. And Rob Wagner has gone along with every single thing that she's employed. And we're talking cat taxes that are retroactive on small businesses and medium-sized businesses that have just been clobbered by government regulations through 2020 and COVID that they're not repealing. Gas taxes that are increasing every single year that they're not repealing when our energy costs are out of control. We allow billions of board feet of timber to just burn up and into thin air because we're not managing our forests. We're not taking care of what we should be taking care of. We've got all these people that are out of work. We've got thousands of small businesses that have gone under due to government regulations. We got people dying with needles in their arm within a block from where we stand right here. I'm telling you today, people will die with needles in their arm within a block from this building that we're in right now. And we have encroachments on property rights happening. We've got one of the highest growing murder rates in the city of Portland, where 70% of the victims are the very black people that these performative liberals that are in charge want you to think that they're protecting. They're the ones who are dying. Like, this is an absolute atrocity in this state. Abortion rights are probably, kind of low on the list at this point in terms of what needs to be fixed here in this state. Right now, we need to get.
I think you
got me clear on that one?
Yeah.
All right.
Loud and clear.
The fun question?
Sure.
Well, so now we do our fun question at the end of every interview. I know.
Good. Well needed.
This time around, the question, I mean, it's kind of a weird question, but it's, what marked sort of the end of the pandemic for you? Was there sort of like a celebration or an event you attended, or just something you did? Like our editor, for example, he got to go to a Blazers game. He's a big Blazers fan, and for him that was kind of a big celebratory moment. Was there something like that?
Like the end of back to normal joy you experienced?
Wendy, I'll start with you.
Camping and our Friday night dinners. We have a group of 5 families. Takes a village to raise a child, and our 5 families are regular get-togethers. Our children are all 16 and up in college and high school, so they have significant others, and the big thing was being able to do those Friday night dinners and going camping. It was amazing, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and Ben, same to you.
I never changed our lives. Our family never changed our lives. We went as hard as we could through normality to live a normal life. We traveled. We tried to go out to restaurants and gyms that were defying orders. We lost $1 million in assets when our businesses were shut down. There's nothing really to celebrate. When I look around the state of Oregon, are we really out of anything? I mean, not really. I never believed in masks. There's been never any data that shows that masks work, that protect yourself or others. And so I never wore masks unless, I had to fly on a plane or something. Otherwise, I would not go places that forced me to wear a mask. We don't have, we traveled all the way through. We just never let it slow us down. We got vaccinated, our family, our kids did not. My wife and I were coerced into it, but we had, we still got COVID anyways, and now we have natural immunity, and we never let any of this.
Why were you coerced into it? I missed that.
Because we had purchased in spring of 2021, we had purchased a trip that was for our whole entire family, and everyone over the age of 12 was forced to vaccinate a month before we found out. A month before the trip, it was an international trip.
To enter another country.
Yeah, to enter another country. So we had paid for it before, and then we were either going to lose the money that we had spent on that or get vaccinated. And so, my wife looked at me and said, "Get the damn shot." And I was like, I'd rather be coerced by her than Kate Brown. So I went ahead and did it with no adverse reaction. I don't have a family history of adverse reactions, but I do have some things that have occurred in my life since then, that in my physical health since then, that's interesting and probably a correlation. Hopefully that those things are temporary.
Well, thank you both. And I do want to apologize for arriving late. I was getting some feedback on a story from a source and lost track of time as I was being told things about my...
No, you're a lot of fun. I appreciate your challenge. One of the things, if this is off the record or whatever, I don't really... No, you can keep it on the record. You can keep it on the record. But one of the things we've really lost in Oregon is debate. And my friends, I can't tell you, this is very painful for me, because in 2020, when all this went down, I started asking questions publicly, and that's what led to me getting on the map in terms of politics. And my friends, that I've been friends with for decades, who were liberals, we would debate all the time about politics, right? And be very close friends. They were like, whoosh. They were so scared of me being public about my ideas. And look, I think that there is always common ground.
There is, and
there's always common ground.
I hope that as things calm down from the pandemic, that can be a back to normal joy. So
That would be, that right there would be my favorite back to normal joy.
thank you so much.
'Cause I miss you liberals. I miss talking to you.
Thank you so much for joining us by Zoom, and thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
nice